This is the recap of our lesson, The System Fails, the Years Before the Civil War. Try to do a brief recap, lots of content. Kansas, Nebraska. Both sides start sending settlers. North and South send settlers into Kansas. The settlers start essentially a mini civil war over whether or not there will be slavery in Kansas. You get two competing capitals. Topeka, the anti-slavery capital, right near Lecompton, the pro-slavery capital. You get Bleeding Kansas. John Brown leads raided a pro-slavery encampment. He and his followers kill 5 pro-slavery people. We watched a little video about the response of two different sides. One side, the northerner, calling John Brown a martyr, the other saying he's a traitor. In the Lecompton Constitution, so the pro-slavery side in Lecompton writes a constitution. The actual population of Kansas was anti-slavery. So this did not really reflect popular sovereignty or the will of most of Kansans. However, President Buchanan in the White House comes out in favor of this constitution, ignoring popular sovereignty because it was not the will of the people. Throughout this conflict, Kansas remains a territory because the Congress, the president, nobody can agree on how to resolve that. You get the election of 1856. This is Buchanan, so we skipped a little ahead there for Lecompton, but in 1856, Buchanan from Pennsylvania, only Pennsylvanian ever elected president. The Republican Party for the first time launches a candidate, James Fremont of California, and Millard Fillmore runs for the American Know Nothing Party. Remember, they were the nativist, anti-Catholic, anti-immigrant party. In 1856, look at this awful ad. The two platforms. The Democratic Party for the white man, the Republican Party for the Negro, and this awful, awful caricature. It shows you how embedded this was. Racism, slavery, this was all part of everyday politics back then. And of course, the Democrats won. Today, that ad would be so beyond the pale. It would be, such a hateful thing could not be tolerated by a major party candidate. But in this case, the Democrats win. You get the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott is a slave living in Missouri. He files suit on the basis that he should be freed because he had been taken to a free area. We watched first the decision. The court ruled against Dred Scott. It also said that the Missouri Compromise, which restricted slavery in the territories, was unconstitutional, that the Congress did not have the right to deny slaveholders their property, i.e. slaves, whether or not they're in slave states or in free states. The questions we watched and we addressed with the video: how is the Supreme Court stacked against Dred Scott? 7 of the 9 were slaveholders. What is Taney's reasoning for his decision? He says that, first of all, he says Dred Scott can't sue because he's a slave, and that black people do not have any rights that whites have to protect or respect. Minnesota was made a free area by the Missouri Compromise, which was rendered unconstitutional, and eventually Dred Scott is freed a year or so later. The Lincoln-Douglas debates, essentially this is showing the difference between popular sovereignty of Douglas versus Lincoln. Lincoln is not anti-slavery and he's not an abolitionist, but he's very much against the spread of slavery into the territories. During this campaign, Lincoln makes the House divided against itself cannot stand speech, a very, very famous line. And we get John Brown's raid. So John Brown is still at it. He raids an arsenal, a federal arsenal in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, trying to seize weapons so that slaves would lead a revolt. He is caught. He is executed. What new rules did if he said he wanted to have a new government, he wanted to overthrow the United States government, he wanted to have equality among the races and equality among the sexes. Okay? And no slavery. And why does he stand apart from other abolitionists? Here's why. You have your William Lloyd Garrisons who argue against slavery. You have your Underground Railroad who takes who take illegal actions to fight slavery. They were illegal at the time. Then you have John Brown, who doesn't just take illegal actions, he takes violent actions. So he uses violence to fight slavery. The big thing about John Brown is that he exacerbates the tensions between North and South, because in the North, many see him as a martyr. The South is horrified by that, and the tension between the two sides increases. So that's it for this lesson. Our next lesson, election of 1860.